whilst I was setting up on my own and I set up on my own, I think 21, and I bought my property when I was my 26th birthday. In between that, people wondered how I'd done the financial side and how I'd got to the stage that I could buy a pretty smart property. And that was a lot to do with a guy called Andrew Corthray. I came out of an event one day, and coming out the secretaries after a telling off, bumped straight into him. And he said, "It's Oliver, isn't it?" This was about 3 years after I'd set up my own. And I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "My name's Andrew, I've been wanting to speak to you for a while." I said, "Well, that's lovely, but I'm running late and I need to go and walk this cross-country course, the novice course." He said, "Oh, that's brilliant, I'm doing the novice tomorrow. Can I come with you?" "Oh, great." Off we go. So we're walking the course, and he's telling me that he's a keen eventer and he's ridden to novice level, and he wants to get involved in a bigger way because he's just sold his business. And we walk another fence, and I'm telling him where to jump it and the line to take and everything else, and then we're halfway across another field, and I've just sold my business, and I'm, you know, wanting to get involved with an event rider, and I've run British Eventing, and they've told me that I offer my assistance for free, but they don't need me. So I'd like to get involved with you one way or another. And I've just sold my business, and we walk another fence, and in the end I got a bit bored of listening to him. So I turned around and I said, "How much have you sold your business for?" And he went silent, and we both stopped, and he said, "No one's ever asked me that." I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry if I've offended you." He said, No. He said, "It was my own business, and 78 million. Then I apologised for walking the first half of the course so quickly. From that point, Andrew explained that he didn't want to own event horses, but he wanted to help me with the business side, and had great sort of connections with business, obviously, and that he thought he could help find sponsors and all this sort of business. And at the end of the course walk, he said, you know, repeated again, "I'm not going to own event horses for you, but I'd really like to help you with the financial side and the running of the actual business." So I said, "Oh, that's great," and took his card, thinking, well, we don't really have sponsors in eventing, I don't think, or not ones that are going to change our lives at the minute. So there we go, thanks to him. Again, he was mad keen not to be involved in owning event horses. He owns 21 now. You know, it had been tough, but I decided, and I remember making the decision one night, that if I'm going to survive in this job, I'm going to have to become a person that I'm not actually that comfortable with. I'm going to have to become so hungry and not really worry to start with how much or how little people thought of me. And now I've got to this stage in my career, it's a really, really tough job to try and get back to the person that I want to be. But at the same time, we kept selling these horses, and it was brilliant. And I realised that I was one of the very few people in the sport that was actually willing to sell anything. I'd go up to lads in the collection ring of advanced events and say to them, "Oh, that's a nice young advanced horse, is it for sale?" "Not likely, this is my Olympic horse." And whenever anybody asked if one of my horses was for sale, I'd say, yeah, it's expensive, and then think of a price and double it, and then get bid and have an argument about it. But I did sell sort of 32 horses a year for the last few years now, which is obviously quite a high turnover. In the meantime, I obviously came across Flynn Curtis, who landed at my property that I was renting. Also came across Piggy French, she moved in as well. And things started to build up very, very quickly, so quickly that I couldn't actually control it. I had 31 owners, a girlfriend with another 10 horses, and from renting my 8 stables, we all of a sudden had a lot of those wooden stables about that you see at the shows. And then the owners of the place built me another barn, and it really snowballed. Then Piggy's business grew. She came again, and I was sort of looking after her and paying the rent for her at this stage. and her business grew, and in the end we ended up with something like 68 horses, spread across about 4 properties. My rent had gone from, in 4 years, my rent had gone from 400 quid a month to 100,000 a year. I decided one of my main goals in life was to buy a property. It wasn't to event as much as have an event yard, or have a yard that I could keep smart and have decided that with the huge rent increase that I was going to look for a property. Again, I went off one day by myself, much to my girlfriend and my parents' disgust, and bought a property. And again, that was on my, as I said, on my 26th birthday, the 15th of November. Quite a big mortgage, 1.2 million quid for a 26-year-old. My girlfriend obviously didn't think that I could manage it, because she quickly got rid of me. My parents followed, and sort of after the initial shock, moved themselves up to Shropshire. The funny thing about buying the property was I couldn't really afford it at the time, but somebody somehow got me this huge mortgage, and the night before I signed for it, on the 30th of November, on the 15th of November, the bank rang me up, and we'd gone into recession, and they said, hello, the mortgage that we've agreed to give you, we can no longer do. Obviously you've seen the news on the TV that this country is about to go, shit's hitting the fan. So I rang Andrew Cawthron, and I said, oh, I found my dream place, and what am I going to do? I had my mortgage organised, and now they've dropped out. He said, well, I've had some very good dealings with NatWest to try this guy. So I rang NatWest and had a meeting immediately with them. And the guy said, well, we can do your mortgage without doubt, but you're £100,000 short. And this was on the 16th of November. I said, okay. He said, can you raise another £100,000? And as I said, I'm not a big borrower anyway. Oh, I wasn't. And I said, can I raise another 100,000? It's not like a couple of quid, is it? So I said, okay, I'll have a go. So I rang Andrew Cawthron. I said, I've got my mortgage, but I'm £100,000 short. He said, well, we've had a very good few years. He said, I'll lend you 100,000. And every time you sell a horse, rather than you getting your share, it comes off the 100,000. I thought, this is a situation I really don't like. The idea of being, in debt to a guy, being in debt to a bank is fine. Anyway, there was a competition called Express Eventing on the 30th of November. Sorry, I nearly cried then. I won it. So I rang Andrew Cawthron up. I said, you know that 100 grand that you were going to lend me? He said, yeah. I said, don't need any more, thanks. So that was obviously a huge, huge thing. Winning £100,000 in one night was great, great, great. Getting it was a bit trickier. But when I sent a couple of my cousins round to the guy's house, he decided they were going to pay up. Anyway, so we bought our property, and this is where we are now. From that point onwards, with the dressage being so much more difficult at express eventing with time changes and things like that, all of a sudden everything started to become very, very easy with Flint Curtis in terms of I had the buttons, probably more buttons than I needed to do a 4-star test, and I was very, very confident that when I turned him away, that he was going to do very well at badminton the following year. And from that point on, obviously, as you said, the rest is history. Went there and cleaned up. He stayed at dressage there. He actually was a little bit fat. I'd been to Kentucky, and my dad's a very good horseman. And I got back. I looked at Flint's shoes, and he could shave with them. It looked like he'd been on the roads every day of the week. I said, what have you been doing, Dad? Don't worry. I said, Dad, his feet are straight. Don't worry, we've got a plan. So the blacksmith came and showed him. I said, Dad, it looks a bit fat. He'll be right. And he was right. He was plenty fit enough. And the funny thing was, I thought that I'd lead the dressage, and I came out the ring and I was very last to go. And I was third after dressage. And an old school friend that's followed my career, he's completely non-horsey. He rang me up on the Friday night. He says, "You all right, lad?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." He says, "Have you won that badminton yet?" I said, no, I haven't, Peter. I'm just a madrasa." He said, "How have you gone on?" I said, "I'm in third and I'm a bit disappointed. Thought I'd have done a bit better." "Who's in front of you?" I said, "Lucy Beaker's mum." He said, "Hey, don't worry about her." I said, "You what, Peter?" "I watched her on the telly. She'll have fences down." I said, "All right, Pete." He said, who's the other one that's in front of you, Oliver?" I said, "It's a Belgian girl." He said, "What's her name?" I said, "Karen Donkers." "Eee, lad." He said, "Don't worry about her." I said, "Why not, Peter?" He said, "Belgium's good for one thing, in my opinion." I said, "What's that, Peter?" He went, "Chocolate."